My final guest today is the chair of the CRD board, Esquimalt Mayor BarbDesjardens. Thanks for coming in today, Mayor.
Thanks
I know
for
you're
asking me to
busy.
come, John.
So, I've asked you here today in your role as CRD chair. Last time was about a year ago. It was in your role as mayor. So, as within your CRD chair, let's start with where else but sewage. And can you give, as of March 1st, which is today, where are we at on sewage? And where are we going?
We are currently at a place where we have made determination that Rock Bay site may be a base case, that there is another option, new option that came forward last week that may also be considered as a base case, which is Clover Point plus McLaughlin and or Macaulay plus a site further on the west shore. There is also a motion to move forward very quickly in terms of looking at private sector proposals that have circled around us that provide indication that they may be more cost effective, more environmentally
Like better benefits?
better
environmentally?
benefit. And we didn't feel that we had significantly delved into those to answer the questions and concerns of the public as to why aren't we going there. So those two steps are being moved forward at this point, and although there's some clarification that continues to need to be heard around the motion that was brought forward on Friday, which sets that out, the next step is the board meeting, which determines how that goes forward.
So a base case, I mean, is it, we now seem to have moved from one base case, Rock Bay, to another base case.
Potentially two.
Potentially, so now we have potentially two base cases.
Yes.
Is that a good thing? In the sense that it now allows a broader range of, as you mentioned, these private sector proponents have been circling for quite a while. So if you gave them one, target, one base case to sort of give us your best on, Rock Bay, but now they have, I guess you've just mentioned 4 sites now to sort of have a shot at.
Yeah. I think that what we need for the funders is some clarity and direction, but we also need for the residents of the region that clarity that we have exhausted all options with respect to what we've heard from the private sector. Having 2 base cases makes that a little bit more cloudy. So we wanted to be able to go forward to the funders with a sense that here's our fallback position, but we also have we are going out into this other process just to make sure that we've done everything we can around climate change initiatives, innovation, private sector. That portion could allow other sites potentially to come forward that may take that second option into consideration. But to have 2 base cases, I think, confuses the issue.
But it confuses the issue for who? I mean, again, my assumption is that if I'm a private sector provider of a certain technology, the more sites that I have to sort of go after or possibly build on or incorporate into some sort of configuration, the better off I'm going to be, because if you restrict me with my technology just one site, that site might not be very compatible or very hospitable to my technology, as opposed to I got 4 to go after.
Let me clarify. The going out for concept plans from the private sector was not restrictive to the base case site.
So when they come in, they can maybe begin with the base case sites and say, hey, we don't like any of these, but if you threw these sites into the mix, we can save you a lot of money. We can really have some really positive environmental benefits to offer.
So how I see it is that they would come forward and say, here's my proposal. It would be this site, and this site. For that, here is my plan. Here is the technology. Here is the financial risk. Here is the environmental benefit. All of those things would come in that plan. There is a process by which, if new sites were identified in that we would go back out to the communities. That was within the project charter, that we would go to the communities and say, with this opportunity that's being presented, would you be willing to put that site forward?
Seems now, though, I participated in the original site selection where the public came in and got to sort of green light, red light, or orange light a particular site. But it was based on very, very sketchy information because, if you ask some of the staff people there, well, what's going to go on this site? They said, I don't know. And then that was always the response question. We don't know what we're going to put on this site, but what do you think? What I hear you saying now is that if a proponent comes in and requests, more higher value sites to them in terms of reducing cost, upping the environmental benefits and so on and so forth, they'll be able to, and indeed it sounds like what you'll say, they will be required to be very clear and very, very detailed as to, okay, if when you go to this municipality and say, well, you put forward this site, it could save us X amount of money, and it would enhance our environmental benefits fivefold. That's going to be of value not only to the councillors in whose municipality that particular site is located, but it's also going to be of great value, I think, to the public in terms of when the councillors have to go to the public and say, oh, what do you think? Then when they ask the question, what are you going to build, how much is it going to cost, they'll be able to say, exactly.
Absolutely. And that's the value of that section of the motion, is that if something comes back at a significant, we heard from the public, cost is very important to them. And second of all, environmental benefit and mitigation of climate change are almost equally as important as cost. So if a plan came in that was significantly less than what our base cases are coming in at, the opportunity to take that back to your community, should you be one of those sites, would be almost a win-win, wouldn't you think?
I would think, but we will wait and see in the terms of which sites some of these proponents might identify as being much more desirable. But you mentioned like you say, you could go back with details on significant savings, significant environmental benefits. And that's what the IRM task force reported out on last week, Wednesday or Friday. And their conclusion was basically is that there's a good possibility that through integrated resource management, we could have substantial positive financial benefits and environmental benefits, including greenhouse gas mitigation. And climate change and greenhouse gas mitigation was one of the CRD's top strategic priorities beginning this year. Quickly for the viewers, though, integrated resource management basically would integrate the biosolids left over from the sewage, the wastewater treatment, and they would combine it with the waste that currently goes into Heartland, and it would be gasified, probably, to produce syngas, which would generate electric power. So those are where some of the considerable savings and environmental benefits might come from.
Yes, absolutely. The task force has been doing a tremendous job in really trying to delve into what benefit could integrated resource management have for our region. Does it even exist? They have definitively determined that yes, it does exist. It could exist in this region. We now need to integrate that concept into the core project, as well as looking at all of these things from a regional perspective. Solid waste and kitchen scraps are regional. Mm-hmm. The core is one part of liquid waste management processes in the region. There are others. The Saanich Peninsula has their issues with their biosolids. I would assume that Souk would like best practice for their biosolids. So in terms of managing all of these waste streams and getting benefit out of them, that report from the Integrated Resource Management Committee Task Force has to come to the board to influence processes in those smaller segments. So it's a board decision. It's my hope that the board will embrace it and determine that this needs to be considered in all processes going forward.
Is that one of the decisions that will be made on the 9th, on March 9th?
Absolutely. It is a board.
Right.
It will be a board report and a board determination of further direction.
Okay, the scenario that you described a couple of minutes ago, which to me, I was struck by the degree of openness to alternative sites, alternative technologies still being able to come in, even though you're going forward with a couple of base cases, which I guess will be rolled into the amended liquid waste management plan?
Yes, so the plan is to do a parallel process. So you're out to the private sector to ensure that if something else is out there, we have the ability to grab onto it. But in the meantime, to move forward with what we know for certain in terms of the process we've had to date, to allow those funders to understand that there is something that we have come to a conclusion on.
Okay.
Should we not have anything better come forward from the private sector?
And are you confident that, well, I mean, will you and the sewage committee chair, Victoria Mayor Lisa Helps, will you have to, assuming this decision is accepted on the 9th, well, then you have to get on a plane and scoot off to Ottawa and convince the minister, the infrastructure minister, that we have made a conclusion, we've made a decision, this is the direction that we're going in, and that will be sufficient to secure the funding, because it's the threat of this loss of funding that just seems to be driving so much.
Yes. So let me take a step back. When this motion came forward that gave those two parts to it, before we brought that forward, we wanted to make sure that at least the province was on side with this concept of making sure that we've really done all of the due diligence. And so Mayor Helps and I had a quick phone call with Minister Fassbender with respect to both parts of the motion. And he was very supportive of ensuring that we had done the due diligence toward looking to the private sector and making sure that we've done everything that we can to mitigate climate change, to really get the best environmental outcome and to get the best price. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So with that positive discussion, recognizing that the minister doesn't make the decisions, but that it seems supportive of where the province wanted to go in terms of climate action. The motion went forward. The committee has adopted the two sections. We need to make that have that conversation as well with the federal government, so that they're on side as well. And everything that I'm hearing from the new government's initiatives is that they want that innovation. They want us to succeed in doing the best. So It would be my sense that they too would embrace it, and we need to have that discussion with them to help ensure that the funding remains secure as we go through the two processes. At the end of the day, wouldn't it be nice to turn around to both of those funders and say, we don't need as much as you've offered. So you can take some of that money and put it towards housing, which you're hearing across the country, and transportation, which you're hearing across the country. And I think both levels of government would be very supportive of making sure that we've done our job to ensure that what we need from them is what we need.
Well, you paint a very positive picture. And what would then stand, what obstacles then are there still between, let's say, on March 9th, in terms of to me, what you've just described is a bit of a no-brainer, but do you anticipate any opposition on March 9th? I'm not saying from who, but just what's the thinking that would drive an opposition to what you've just described?
Well, I think it's the difficulty of the perception that there may be delay, and we're not saying that there will be delay, but there is a perception that when you're doing another process that there may be delay, and somehow we have to make that clear to people that this does not mean delay. This means due diligence. So that's one perspective. There are the naysayers that have been there all along saying integrated resource management is bunk. Mm-hmm. Don't believe it. Get on with it. So we have to combat that. That's why the task force was set up. And that was a board directive. So the board has to listen and hear that and weigh that out. And it's my hope that they do see what I've seen from the task force, and there are many around the table at the task force that were, sort of skeptical in the beginning, but they are truly seeing that this is possible. The private sector does have solutions. We just have to be able to invite them in some manner to get those solutions in front of the committee.
So maybe they're having a come to IRM moment?
Certainly the IRM task force has. They need to convey that to the rest of the board. Okay. And it's my hope that they can do that, because I don't want to pass up this opportunity if it's there.
No. Well, congratulations. Good luck going forward with this, and I really appreciate you coming in today.
Thanks very much. I appreciate being here.
That concludes this segment of the CRD in Context.